The wandering cowboy found the black widow with a shaved head and the word "Unwanted" written in charcoal across her dark scalp. She sat beside a small fire as bullets whistled overhead. Ezekiel Cartwright pressed himself against the red stone. Outcropping, his horse had collapsed 50 yards back. The desert dust burned his throat. 3 riders had been chasing him since dawn. The woman never looked up from her flames. She stirred something in a dented pot. Steam rose between them like a question mark. "Ma'am." Easy kept his voice low. "You need to get down. Those men hunting you or me?" Her voice carried the weight of someone who had asked that question before. Easy studied her profile. The marking on her skull looked fresh, deliberate, like she painted it there every morning. "Both, I reckon." She finally raised her eyes. They held no fear, only a tired kind of knowing that made Easy's chest tighten. "Then 3 months they've been following my trail. Question is, cowboy, what did you do to make them want you too?" The gunfire stopped. Desert silence pressed down like a heavy blanket. Easy's breathing sounded too loud in his own ears. "You got water?" She nodded toward a canteen beside the fire. Easy crawled forward. His knees scraped against stone and sage. The woman watched him drink without moving. "They won't come closer while I'm here." She returned to stirring her pot. "Too afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of me." Easy wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. The woman's calmness felt unnatural, like she had made peace with something he couldn't name. "Name's Easy Cartwright. Delphine Mercy." The name hit him like cold water. He had been tracking that name across 3 territories, following rumors and whispered stories. The sole survivor of Salvation Creek. "You're her." "I'm lots of things, most of them unwanted." Delphine ladled stew into a tin bowl. She offered it to Easy without ceremony. The smell made his stomach clench with hunger. "Salvation Creek, what about it?" "Whole town burned. Everyone died but you." Delphine's hands stilled on the ladle. For a moment, something raw flickered across her face. Then the mask returned. "That what they told you?" Easy ate the stew. Rabbit and wild onions. It tasted better than anything he had eaten in weeks. Delphine watched him with those knowing eyes. "I was investigating what happened there. Were you now?" It wasn't a question. Delphine poured herself coffee from a blackened pot. The liquid steamed in the cooling air. "Used to be a lawman, before." "Before what?" Easy set down the empty bowl. The weight of his failures pressed against his ribs like broken glass. "Before I got people killed by being too slow to act." Delphine nodded. She understood failure. Easy could see it in the set of her shoulders. "Those men out there, they federal?" "One of them, Marshal Grimes. Others are hired guns." "What they want with you?" Delphine touched the marking on her head. Her fingers traced the letters like they were carved into her soul. "They think I know things. About what happened to Salvation Creek. About gold that went missing." "Do you?" "I know the truth. Whether that's the same thing depends on who's asking." The sun was setting. Orange light painted the rocks the color of dried blood. Easy felt exposed despite their shelter. "Can't stay here come morning." "No, we can't." Easy noticed she said we. The word hung between them like a promise neither had made yet. "Where you headed?" "California. Got people there, might take me in, might not. Long way to travel alone." "Been alone 3 months. Gotten used to it." But her voice carried a loneliness that cut deeper than the desert wind. Easy recognized it. He had been carrying the same weight since he turned in his badge. "Salvation Creek, you willing to show me what's left?" Delphine studied his face in the firelight. "Searching for something, maybe finding it." "Why?" "Because I think someone lied to me about what happened there. And I think you're the only one left who knows the real story." "Real story might not be what you want to hear." "Haven't wanted to hear much of anything lately. Doesn't mean I don't need to." Delphine pulled a blanket around her shoulders. The marking on her head disappeared in shadow. "Help me get to California. I'll show you Salvation Creek. But Cowboy." "Yeah? Every man who's tried to help me ends up dead or wishing he was." "That? A risk you willing to take?" Easy looked at his empty hands, at the woman who wore her exile like armor, at the endless desert that stretched toward whatever waited for them both. "Yes, ma'am, I believe it is." Delphine smiled for the first time. It was sad and knowing and beautiful in the dying light. "Then we best get some sleep. Got a long ride ahead of us." They rode out before dawn. Two figures against the gray sky, moving like ghosts across the broken earth. Easy had found his horse grazing near a hidden spring. The animal's eyes showed white. When Delphine approached, "He don't like me much." Animals sense things. Delphine swung onto her own mount without looking at Easy. Her movements held the grace of someone who had learned to take care of herself. The town of Dry Creek squatted. In the valley below them like a wound in the desert floor. Smoke rose from a dozen chimneys. The saloon's batwing doors caught the morning light. "Need supplies," Easy said. "Need to avoid people more." But they were low on water. The horses needed grain. Survival trumped caution. Dry Creek's main street stretched empty in the early hour. Their hoofbeats echoed off false fronts and weathered wood. A dog barked once, then fell silent. The general store owner looked up from his ledger. His eyes found Delphine's marking. His face went pale. "We need flour, coffee, grain for the horses." The man's hands shook as he gathered their order. He kept glancing at Delphine. She stood perfectly still beside the pickle barrel, waiting. "That'll be $4. Easy paid without haggling. The store owner's relief filled the space between them. They led their horses to the water trough. Delphine knelt beside the wooden basin, cupped water in her palms, washed the charcoal from her scalp, then pulled fresh charcoal from her saddlebag, rewrote the word with careful strokes. "Why?" "Reminds." "Them reminds me." Easy watched her fingers trace each letter. The ritual held weight, purpose. Pain made visible. The saloon doors swung open. 3 men stumbled into the street. Their laughter died when they saw Delphine. "That her?" The tallest man's voice carried across the dust. "The one from Salvation Creek?" The others stepped closer. Curiosity and fear warred in their faces. "Heard tell she can see into a man's soul. Heard tell she drove a whole town mad." Delphine straightened. Water dripped from her hands. She met their stares without flinching. "What you see when you look at us, witch woman?" The tall man's voice cracked on the last words. Delphine studied. His face, his clenched fists, the way he favored his left leg. "I see a man who beats his wife when he drinks. Who drinks because he hates what he's become. Who hates what he's become because his father did the same thing." The man stepped backward. His companion stared at him with new eyes. "I see a man who stole money from the church collection. Who tells himself it was a loan. Who can't sleep at night because his mother raised him better." The second man's face crumpled. Guilt poured from him like blood from a fresh wound. "And I see a man who wants to confess to the sheriff about what really happened to that drifter. Last winter. Who knows his friends will hang for it? Who's more afraid of living with the secret than dying with the truth?" The third man turned and ran. His boots hammered against the wooden sidewalk. The others followed, leaving dust and silence in their wake. Easy stared at Delphine. Her face showed no satisfaction. No triumph, only tired resignation. "How did you know?" "People carry their sins in their bodies, in the way they stand. The way they look away. You learn to read the signs." "That all it is, reading signs?" Delphine mounted her horse. The leather creaked under her weight. "Does it matter?" They rode out of Dry Creek as the sun climbed higher. Behind them, Easy could hear shouting. Raised voices. Men accusing each other of things they thought were buried. It follows you everywhere. Yes, the chaos. People make their own chaos. I just help them see it. The desert stretched ahead of them. Red rock and sage and endless sky. Easies. Horse picked its way around cactus and stone. Tell me about your husband. Delphine's hands tightened on her reins. For a long moment, only the wind answered. Samuel was a good man. Believed everyone deserved forgiveness. Even me. Even you. Especially me. They rode in silence for an hour. The sun beat down on their shoulders. Sweat gathered under Easy's hat brim. What happened to make you think you needed forgiving? Delphine pulled up near a cluster of cottonwoods. A small stream ran between the roots. They watered the horses without speaking. I was 8 when I first made someone tell the truth. My mother's brother. He'd been taking things from our house. Small things. A spoon, a hair ribbon, mother's wedding ring. She sat on a fallen log, picked up a smooth stone, turned it over. In her palm, I looked at him across the dinner table, told him I knew what he'd been doing, knew where he hid the stolen things, knew he planned to sell them for drinking money. The stone reflected sunlight between her fingers. He broke down, confessed everything, begged forgiveness. Mother forgave him. Father did too. Sounds like you did good. Uncle James hanged himself that night. Couldn't live with the shame. Easy felt something cold settle in his chest. Understanding crept up his spine like winter frost. Been carrying that burden ever since? Been careful ever since. Learned to stay away from people. Keep to myself. But sometimes, she threw the stone into the stream. It sank without a sound. Sometimes the loneliness gets too heavy. I forget what I am. What I do to people. What happened in Salvation Creek. I got lonely. Thought maybe with Samuel beside me, I could be normal. For a while. The horses nickered softly. Water ran over stones with gentle music. But Easy heard something else underneath. The sound of wheels on hard ground. We got company. Delphine stood, brushed dust from her riding skirt. 3 riders topped the ridge behind them. Marshal Grimes rode in the center. His badge caught the light. Time to go. They mounted quickly, spurred their horses into the stream. Water splashed around the animals' legs. The current would hide their tracks for a while. They'll catch us eventually. Maybe, then what? Delphine urged her horse up the far bank. Her face set in hard lines. Then you'll learn why they marked me unwanted. And why maybe they were right to do it. Easy followed her into the broken country beyond the stream. Behind them, the riders drew closer. Ahead lay the ruins of Salvation Creek, and whatever truth waited there in the dust and bones of a dead town. Salvation Creek looked like the bones of something that had died screaming. Easy pulled his horse to a stop at the ridge overlooking the ruins. Blackened timber jutted from the earth. Stone foundations marked where homes had stood. The church. Steeple leaned at an impossible angle, its bell hanging silent in the desert wind. Doesn't look like any raid I ever seen. Delphine dismounted. Her boots crunched on scattered glass and ash. The sound carried too far in the stillness. No raid, no fire from outside. Easy studied the destruction. Barricades made from furniture blocked doorways. Windows had been boarded from within. Scorch. Marks painted the inside walls of every structure. They were fighting each other. Yes. Delphine walked between the ruins. Her fingers traced burn marks on a fallen door. The wood crumbled at her touch. Started small. Mrs. Henderson accused. Mr. Bailey of watering down milk he sold. Bailey said she'd been stealing eggs from his chickens. She moved to the next foundation. A child's doll lay half buried in the dirt. One porcelain eye stared at the sky. Then Jenkins claimed someone was rustling his cattle. Said he found hoofprints near his fence. Fresh-cut wire. Easy followed her deeper into the ghost town. His horse's hooves echoed off broken stones. The sound felt like grave dirt falling. Neighbors started watching neighbors, counting chickens, measuring property lines, looking for signs of theft, betrayal, wickedness. They reached the town square. A well sat in the center, its rope cut, and bucket missing. Someone had carved words into the wooden frame. Liar, thief, murderer. How long did it take? 3 weeks, from the first accusation to the last gunshot. Delphine knelt beside a pile of rubble, pulled out a piece of charred wood. The grain showed through the soot and flame damage. Samuel tried to stop it, preached about forgiveness. Turning the other cheek, love thy neighbor. Her voice carried the weight of old grief, fresh as the day it was born. But guilt is stronger than love. Fear is louder than prayer. Easy dismounted, tied his horse to a broken hitching post. The leather reins felt slick with sweat in his palms. Where were you when it happened? Hiding, she stood. Brushed ash from her hands. The motion left gray streaks on her dark skin. Samuel made me promise. If the madness took the town, I was to hide in the church cellar, wait for it to end. They walked toward the leaning church. Its doors hung open on broken hinges. Inside, pews lay scattered and overturned. Bullet holes pocked the altar. He died here. Delphine's voice barely rose above a whisper. She touched a dark stain on the wooden floor. 3 men came for him, said he was protecting the guilty, hiding the truth. They wanted him to name names, point fingers, choose sides. Easy knelt beside the stain. Old blood soaked deep into the grain. The wood had drunk it down and held it. Samuel told them the only truth that mattered. We're all guilty of something. We all need mercy. Behind the altar, stone steps led down into darkness. The cellar. Door stood open. Ancient hinges rust-red with age. So they killed him for telling the truth. They killed him because the truth was too heavy to carry. Delphine descended the steps. Easy followed, his boots scraping on stone. The cellar smelled of damp earth and old fear. I listened from down here, heard the gunshots, heard him fall. Heard them arguing over his body. Wooden crates lined the walls. Most had been broken open, their contents scattered across the floor. Easy picked up a leather-bound book. The pages fell open to careful handwriting. His journal. He wrote everything down. Every confession, every secret, every sin the townspeople brought to him. Easy read the careful script. Dates and names, crimes and sorrows. The hidden weight of a small town's darkness. This is what they were really fighting about. Samuel knew all their secrets. And guilt makes people dangerous. Easy turned the pages. Theft, adultery, land disputes. Old grudges turned deadly. But one entry stopped him cold. The Morales family. Delphine's face went stone still. She took the journal from his hands. Mexican settlers claimed land south of town. Good water, rich soil, found gold in the creek bed. What happened to them? Read further. Easy found the entry dated 3 months before the town's destruction. Samuel's handwriting grew shaky, urgent. 5 men from town rode out to the Morales homestead, told them their claim wasn't legal, ordered them to leave. The writing grew darker, pressed harder into the page. When the family refused, the men said they'd make them leave, permanently. Easy looked up from the journal. Delphine stared at the cellar wall, her jaw clenched tight. They killed them, all of them. Parents, 3 children, buried them in an unmarked grave, and took their land and their gold. Easy read the names Samuel had recorded. 5 men, respected citizens, including one wearing a federal marshal's badge, Grimes. Marshal Thaddeus Grimes, town founder, pillar of the community. Cold-blooded killer. The pieces fell together in Easy's mind. The missing gold, the federal investigation, the pursuit across 3 territories. He's been hunting you because you know the truth. Samuel was going to expose them, all of them. He'd gathered evidence, witnesses, proof of murder. Delphine pulled a loose stone from the cellar wall. Behind it lay a metal box. She lifted it with careful hands. The night he died, Samuel hid this, made me promise to keep it safe. Use it to see justice done. Easy opened the box. Documents, photographs, a child's silver cross, evidence of massacre and theft. Why didn't you turn it over to the law? Because the law wore a badge and helped pull the trigger. Above them, horses approached. Hoofbeats on broken ground. Voices calling across the ruins. Grimes. Easy closed the box, tucked it inside his coat. The weight of it pressed against his ribs. How many men? 3, same as always. They climbed the cellar steps. Sunlight stabbed through the broken church roof. Outside, riders moved between the foundations. Searching. Mrs. Mercy, we know you're here. Grimes' voice carried the authority of his badge. The certainty of a man who believed his own lies. Time to come out. Face what you've done. Delphine touched the marking on her head. Her fingers traced the letters with ritual precision. What I've done is survive. What you've done is murder. Easy checked his gun. 6 rounds, against 3 men. Long odds made longer by the truth they carried. Back door, boarded up years ago. The horses drew closer. Grimes called out again. Bring us the gold, Mrs. Mercy. Tell us where your husband hid it. Maybe we'll make this quick. Delphine met Easy's eyes. In them he saw resignation, determination, the quiet courage of someone who had already lost everything. You ready to learn why they call me Unwanted, Cowboy? Easy nodded, the box pressed against his heart. Samuel's truth. The Morales family's justice, worth dying for. Then let's show them what the truth looks like. Thunder rolled across the broken sky as they fled Salvation Creek. Easy and Delphine rode hard through arroyos carved by ancient floods. Behind them, Grimes and his men gave chase through the gathering storm. The first drops of rain hit Easy's face like cold accusations. Within minutes, the desert transformed. Dry creek beds filled with rushing water. Flash floods carved new channels. Through the hardpan, there. Delphine pointed toward a cluster of buildings huddled in a valley. Broken mesa. The town sat trapped between high walls of red stone. One way in, one way out. The storm would seal both. They rode into the main street as lightning split the sky. Windows glowed yellow against the darkness. People hurried along wooden sidewalks, seeking shelter from the deluge. Hotels there. Easy nodded toward a 2-story building. A sign creaked. In the wind. We hole up until the water recedes. Bad idea. Only idea we got. Delphine pulled her coat tight around her shoulders. Water dripped from her marked scalp. The charcoal letters began to run, leaving dark streams down her face. They stabled their horses and climbed the hotel steps. The desk clerk looked up from his ledger. His eyes found Delphine's marking. Fear and fascination warred in his expression. 2 rooms. Easy paid without meeting the man's stare. The clerk's hands shook as he passed over the keys. Ma'am. The clerk's voice cracked. You might want to know. We got a minister here. Reverend Pike. He's been preaching about signs and portents. About judgment coming to the wicked. Delphine's fingers closed around her room key. The metal felt cold against her palm. What kind of signs? Strange ones, dreams, visions. People confessing sins they never spoke aloud before. The lobby door opened. A thin man in black stepped inside. Water ran from the brim of his hat. His eyes burned with the fever of absolute certainty. You're her, the one from Salvation Creek. Reverend Pike's voice carried the weight of prophecy. Other guests turned to stare. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. I am Delphine Mercy. Mercy, Pike tasted the word. Ironic name for one who brings judgment. I bring nothing but myself. And yet destruction follows in your wake. Easy stepped forward. His hand rested on his gun butt. The gesture was subtle but clear. Lady's tired, been riding hard. Pike ignored him. His gaze fixed on Delphine's marked head. On the running. Charcoal that painted her face with dark tears. The mark of Cain, the brand of the cursed, the mark of the unwanted. Same thing, isn't it? Delphine met his stare without flinching. In the silence between them, Easy heard the storm growing stronger. Water hammered against windows. Wind howled through the gaps in the walls. Reverend, the hotel clerk's voice held warning. Perhaps we should let our guests rest. Pike smiled. It was cold and sharp and full of righteous satisfaction. Oh, there will be no rest tonight, not for the wicked. Not for those who harbor them. He turned and walked into the storm. The door slammed behind him with the finality of a coffin lid. Easy and Delphine climbed the stairs to their rooms. The wooden steps creaked under their weight. Behind them, the lobby buzzed with nervous conversation. This won't end well. Never does. Delphine's room sat across the hall from his. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. Easy. Yeah? If it goes bad, if the town turns. Don't try to save me. Why? Because maybe they're right. Maybe I am cursed. She disappeared into her room. The door closed with a soft click. Easy stood alone in the hallway, water dripping from his coat onto the worn carpet. He entered his own room and moved to the window. Below, Reverend Pike stood. In the street. Rain poured down his face as he preached to anyone who would listen. His words were lost in the storm, but his gestures spoke of damnation and divine wrath. Easy cleaned his gun by lamplight. 6 bullets. He had 6 chances to keep Delphine alive. To see justice done for the Morales family. To make Samuel's sacrifice. Means something. Outside his door, footsteps moved through the hallway. Voices whispered urgent questions. Delphine's name passed from mouth to mouth like a contagion. By midnight, a crowd had gathered in the hotel lobby. Easy could hear them through the thin floor. Their voices rose and fell with the rhythm of mob mentality. Fear breeding fear. Suspicion feeding on itself. He dozed fitfully in a chair by the window, the gun heavy in his lap. Dreams came in fragments. Samuel Mercy dying on church floor. The Morales children buried in unmarked graves. Delphine sitting alone by desert fires, painting unwanted across her skull. A scream woke him near dawn. Easy bolted upright. The storm had passed. Weak sunlight filtered through his window. In the street below, 2 men fought with fists and curses. Blood ran from split lips. Torn clothes revealed scratched skin. More screams echoed from other parts of town. Glass broke somewhere nearby. A woman sobbed behind thin walls. Easy crossed the hall, knocked on Delphine's door. It started. She opened the door. Her face showed no surprise, only tired resignation. How bad? Bad enough. They moved to his window. The town writhed below them like something in pain. Neighbors accused neighbors. Friends became enemies. The minister's wife stood in the street confessing adultery to anyone who would listen. What did you do? Nothing. Everything. Does it matter? A man burst from the general store. His arms were full of stolen goods. Behind him, the owner gave chase with a shotgun. They disappeared around a corner, leaving destruction in their wake. It's Salvation Creek all over again. Yes, Easy watched the chaos spread. Guilt made visible. Sin given voice. The hidden darkness of human nature dragged into the light. Can you stop it? Could you stop a wildfire once it takes hold? More voices rose from the lobby. Angry now, demanding. Feet pounded on the stairs. Easy counted the footsteps. Too many. Time to go. They gathered their few possessions. Easy checked the loads in his gun. Delphine pulled her coat tight around her shoulders. The marking on her head had been refreshed with careful strokes. The footsteps reached their floor. Fists hammered on doors. Voices called for the witch woman, for the bringer of judgment, for blood to pay for chaos. Easy opened the window. A balcony stretched across the front of the hotel. Below, the crowd grew larger. Above, gray. Clouds promised more rain. Can you climb down? Done worse things to survive. They swung over the windowsill. The wooden balcony creaked under their weight. In the street, someone spotted them, pointed, shouted. The crowd surged toward the hotel. Men with ropes, women with stones, children with wide eyes and cruel curiosity. Easy and Delphine climbed down the balcony posts. Splinters bit into their palms. Their boots scraped against weathered wood. They dropped into the alley behind the hotel, ran toward the stables. Behind them, the mob's roar grew louder. More desperate, more hungry for someone to blame. At the stable doors, a familiar voice stopped them cold. Going somewhere, Mrs. Mercy? Marshal Grimes stepped from the shadows. His badge caught the pale morning light. His gun was already drawn. Been waiting for you to flush her out, boys. Knew she'd run when the town turned ugly. 2 more men emerged from hiding places. Their weapons trained on Easy and Delphine. The trap had been perfectly laid. Now then, let's talk about that gold. Marshal Grimes kept his gun steady. The badge on his chest caught morning light like a promise that had turned to poison. 3 months I've been chasing ghosts. Time for answers. His men flanked him in the stable doorway. Behind them, the mob's voices grew louder. Broken Mesa tore itself apart street by street. What answers you looking for, Marshal? Easy's hand hovered near his gun. 3 against 1. Poor odds made. Worse by Delphine standing beside him. Gold that went missing from Salvation Creek. Papers that don't belong to her. Stories that need to stay buried. Grimes stepped closer. His boots crunched on stable straw. The sound was dry, final. Samuel Mercy was a fool. Stuck his nose where it didn't belong. Asked questions no one wanted answered. Questions about the Morales family. The words hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Grimes' face went stone still. Don't know what you're talking about. Mexican settlers, good land, better gold. 5 men decided they wanted both. Easy pulled the metal box from inside his coat. Samuel's evidence, the dead family's only voice. Know what's in here, Marshal. Names, dates, witnesses to murder. Grimes' jaw tightened. His finger caressed the trigger of his gun. That box belongs to federal evidence. Theft of government property is a hanging offense. Murder's a hanging offense, too. Behind them, glass shattered somewhere in town. A woman screamed. Men shouted accusations that cut deeper than knives. Look around you, Marshal. See what she does to decent folks. Grimes gestured toward the chaos with his free hand. His voice carried the righteous anger of a man who believed his own lies. Everywhere she goes, people turn evil. Start telling truths better left unsaid. Start confessing. Sins that tear communities apart. Delphine spoke for the first time since they'd been trapped. I don't make people evil. I show them what they already are. Same thing. No, evil hides in silence, in secrets. In the lies we tell ourselves about being good. She stepped forward. Grimes' gun tracked her movement. I'm a mirror, Marshal. I reflect what's really there. And what I see in you is a killer wearing a badge. Shut up. A man who shot 3 children because they saw their parents die. Who buried them in unmarked graves. Who sleeps with their blood on his hands. I said shut up. But Delphine's voice carried power now. The same power that had torn through Salvation Creek and Dry Creek and now Broken Mesa. You dream about them, don't you? The little girl who hid behind her mother's skirts. The boy who tried to run. The baby who never even learned to walk. Grimes' face went white. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool morning air. They visit you at night. Ask why you killed them. Ask when you're going to pay. Stop. You keep moving. Keep chasing. Keep telling yourself you're the law. But the dead don't care about badges. One of Grimes' men lowered his weapon. Stared at his boss with new eyes. The other shifted nervously. Marshal, that true what she's saying. She's a witch. Makes people see things that ain't real. But his voice cracked on the words. Truth leaked through like blood through bandages. I see a man who's been running for 3 years. Who founded Salvation Creek to hide from his crimes. Who killed my husband because Samuel found evidence. Delphine's markings seemed to burn darker on her scalp. The charcoal letters stood out against her skin. The gold you're looking for? It belonged to the Morales family. Samuel was going to return it to their relatives in Mexico. Make sure their deaths meant something. Where is it? Buried with him. In the Salvation Creek Cemetery, under the headstone of a good man murdered by cowards. Easy watched the marshal's face crumble. Guilt poured from him like water from a broken dam. We didn't mean for it to go that far. Just wanted them gone. They wouldn't listen. The confession hung in the stable air, heavy, damning, final. The baby started crying, wouldn't stop. People might have heard. One of his men backed toward the door. Horror replaced loyalty in his eyes. Jesus Thaddeus. You killed a baby? Had to. You understand? Had to keep them quiet. The man threw down his gun. Ran into the street. Left his marshal standing naked with his crimes. The second gunman hesitated. Looked between Grimes and Delphine. Between law and justice. Between the man he'd followed and the monster he'd discovered. This ain't what I signed up for. He holstered his weapon, walked away without looking back. Grimes stood alone now, his gun trembling in his grip. The badge on his chest no longer a symbol of authority, but a reminder of promises broken. You did this, turned my own men against me. I did nothing. Truth did that. Easy stepped between them. His own gun finally drawn. 6 bullets against 1 broken man. It's over, Grimes. Put down the weapon. Can't do that. Too much at stake. What's at stake? Your reputation? Your career? 5 people are already dead because of your choices. 7 people. Don't forget Samuel and the woman. Easy's blood went cold. What woman? Morales had a sister, lived in town. Started asking questions after her family disappeared. Had to silence her too. Delphine made a sound deep in her throat. Pain-given voice. Another innocent life lost to one man's greed. That's 8 murders, Marshal. How many more you planning? The stable doors burst open. Reverend Pike stumbled inside. His black coat was torn. Blood ran from a split lip. Behind him came the mob. There she is. The witch woman, the bringer of chaos. Pike pointed at Delphine with shaking finger. The crowd pressed forward. Ropes. In their hands, stones. Broken bottles. See what she's done to our town? Neighbor turned against neighbor. Friends become enemies. Children confessing sins that should stay buried. But Grimes was laughing now, wild, desperate. The sound of a man with nothing left to lose. You want to know about sin, Reverend? You want to know about evil? He turned his gun toward the crowd. His badge caught the light one last time. Let me tell you about the night we killed the Morales family. Let me tell you how the baby sounded when it stopped crying. The confession exploded through the stable. Pike stepped backward. The mob faltered. Truth was a weapon sharper than any blade. And the gold? The blood money we killed for? Buried under dirt while we lived high on stolen land. Easy saw his chance. Lunged forward. Grimes' gun swung toward him. The shot echoed through broken mesa. Birds scattered from the stable rafters. Smoke drifted between the wooden beams. Someone fell to the straw-covered floor. Someone else stood over them. Someone else held a smoking gun. The truth had finally found its voice. Marshall Grimes lay still on the stable floor. His badge reflected nothing now. The gun had fallen from his hand when Easy's bullet found its mark. Smoke drifted between the wooden beams. The crowd at the doorway stood frozen. Reverend Pike stared at the fallen marshal with wide eyes. He confessed. Pike's voice barely rose above a whisper. Confessed to murdering children. The mob's anger crumbled. Guilt replaced rage. They had been ready to hang an innocent woman while the real killer wore a badge. Easy kept his gun drawn. 6 bullets had become 5. The crowd could still turn dangerous if fear overtook reason. Anyone else want to hear about justice? The townspeople shuffled backward, avoided his eyes, avoided looking at Delphine. Some wept openly, others simply stared at the ground. Go home. Clean up your town. Make peace with your neighbors. They dispersed slowly, quietly. The chaos that had gripped Broken Mesa began to ebb. Truth had a way of burning out lies. Pike remained in the doorway. His torn coat hung loose around his thin frame. I was wrong about you. Delphine touched the marking on her head. Her fingers traced the letters with familiar ritual. Were you? You're not a bringer of evil. You're a revealer of it. Same thing to most folks. Pike shook his head. Stepped aside as Easy and Delphine moved toward their horses. No, evil revealed can be repented. Evil hidden only grows stronger. They rode out of Broken Mesa as the sun climbed higher. Behind them, the town began the slow work of healing. Of facing what they had become. Of choosing to be better. The desert stretched ahead, red rock and sage and endless sky. California waited beyond the mountains. Freedom, safety, a chance to start over. They traveled in comfortable silence. The weight of secrets no longer pressed between them. Truth had made them both lighter. That evening they camped beside a stream. Clear water ran over smooth stones. Fish jumped at insects in the fading light. Easy built a small fire. Delphine sat on a fallen log, pulled out her piece of charcoal, stared at it. For a long moment, don't have to do that anymore. Habit. Bad habits can be broken. She threw the charcoal into the stream. It sank without a sound. The water carried it away toward distant oceans. What happens now? Easy poked at the fire with a stick. Sparks rose into the darkening sky. Now we keep writing. Find that place in California. Start something new. Together, if you'll have me. Delphine smiled. The expression transformed her face, made her beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with features or form. Been alone. A long time, me too. Might not remember how to be with someone. We'll figure it out. The fire crackled between them. Night sounds filled the desert. Owls calling. Coyotes singing. The eternal music of wild places. What about Samuel's evidence? Easy patted his coat pocket. The metal box pressed against his ribs. Send it to the territorial governor. Let him sort out the mess. Make sure the Morales family gets justice. Even if it's too late. And the gold? Belongs to their relatives in Mexico. Samuel was right about that. Delphine nodded. Justice delayed, but not denied. The dead would finally have their voice. 6 months later, Easy Cartwright stood in the doorway of a one-room schoolhouse. Delphine sat at a wooden desk, helping a young girl with her letters. Other children gathered around, their faces bright with curiosity. The school served the unwanted, orphans, mixed-blood children. Those society had cast aside. Delphine gave them what she had never received herself: acceptance, understanding, hope. Easy had used the Morales gold wisely. The school was built on good land, near clean water, with room to grow. The children had beds, books, 3 meals a day. Most importantly, they had someone who understood what it meant to be marked as different. Mr. Easy, a boy tugged on his sleeve. Will you tell us about the desert again? Easy knelt beside the child. Others gathered around, their eyes wide with wonder. What do you want to know? Is it true what Miss Delphine says? That everyone has darkness inside them? Easy glanced at Delphine. Her hair had grown back, soft and natural, no longer marked with painful words. Everyone has darkness. Everyone has light. The choice is which one you feed. How do you feed the light? By helping others, by telling the truth, by standing up for what's right even when it's hard. The children nodded. Solemnly, old souls in young bodies, they understood hardship, understood rejection. But here they were learning something else. Redemption. That evening, Easy and Delphine walked among the vegetable gardens behind the school. Corn grew tall in neat rows. Beans climbed wooden poles. Tomatoes hung heavy on the vine. Happy? Delphine picked a ripe tomato. Bit into it. Juice ran down her chin. Getting there. The children love you. They understand me. Makes a difference. Easy pulled her close. She fit against him perfectly. 2 broken pieces made whole. Any regrets? About leaving my old life? About coming here? About you? Any of it? Delphine looked back at the schoolhouse. Lamplight glowed in the windows. Children's laughter carried on the evening breeze. No regrets, only gratitude. For what? For learning that being unwanted by some people means nothing, as long as you're wanted by the right ones. Easy kissed her forehead, tasted salt. Sunshine, hope, the desert wind whispered through the gardens, carried the scent of growing things, of life taking root in hard ground, of futures blooming despite difficult pasts. 2 souls once marked as unwanted had found their place, their purpose, their peace. In teaching others to read, Delphine had learned to write a new story, one where outcasts became heroes, where truth triumphed over lies, where love conquered fear. Easy had traded his gun for a plow, his badge for a teacher's calling, his past failures for present purpose. Together they tended the garden of tomorrow, planted seeds of knowledge, harvested crops of compassion, grew something beautiful from the dust of their broken histories. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient lights in an eternal sky, witnessing the quiet miracle of redemption, of second chances taken and treasured, of the unwanted finding home at last. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, and if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.